Hello, BookTube. I'm here to do an original tag by Steve Donoghue. He's tagged me. It's the Cryptid book tag. Steve's been, by the looks of it, spending a little time with creatures. And so he's created a tag. There are 8 questions, or 8 prompts. The first one is, a cryptid is a mystery animal whose fans say it definitely could exist. Not that it does, but that could exist. Maybe, possibly. How do you deal with books recommended to you by their fervent true believers? I've had this happen a few times, because people usually, you read books. So, you must know X author, and sometimes they do, and I'll say, no, it's either not the kind of stuff I read, why don't you want to read it? Well, I've got thousands of books that are on my plate that I want to read. I can't read everything, so I have to be selective. Or if I have read it, I say I have, and I say what I think of it, not in sort of derogatory terms, or anything bad. Just if I don't like it, I don't like it, or I've read something else by them. I just figure might as well be straight right from the start, because otherwise it can cause problems. And it's just, more hassle down the road. So just get the hassle over with, quick and easy. Or, well, maybe not easy, but quick. Number 2, cryptozoology is typically mocked as a pseudoscience pursued by charlatans and scientific illiterates. And yet it's oddly fun to investigate. Name a non-cryptology kind of book that's likewise fun, but though deeply, deeply flawed. Anything by Eric von Däniken, and there was a few others at the time. They're fun to read, like Chariots of the Gods, The Return of the Gods, I think. And he's written probably a couple dozen books just peddling the same thing, which is fun to read, and you don't need to know a whole lot about archaeology or history to see the problems there, but they're fun to read. And there were other authors that I just can't think of off the top of my head that did similar. I haven't read any of these in a long time, but I suppose if I saw some copies that come up, I'd probably pick them up again and have a good fun read with them. Number 3, Cryptid Water-Monsters, a favorite water-related book. The Sea Around Us is about the only thing I could think of by Rachel Carson. I remember reading this many, many years ago, like 35, 40 years ago. It's sort of a history of the oceans, through sort of geological history, biological history, and through literature as well. Remember even some poetry in there, I think. But yeah, and because I haven't read too much that are on water, I do have a book that might, like if I had read it, it might actually be better for this. It's sort of a history of water usages in the UK. So that could be interesting. It does look very interesting. I just never got around to reading it. I picked it up in a bargain book. And there's been some new ones that I've seen, as Steve Donoghue has shown over the last year or so. There's, I think, something called The Boundless Sea. And then there's another one that's about the Southern Ocean or something like that, history of the Southern Ocean. They both look very interesting, but I just haven't got around to getting them. They're new books, so I generally stay away unless it's something specifically in my area that I'm reading at the moment, or that I do read. Number 4, Cryptid Dog-Monster, a favorite book about a dog or dog-like creature. That would be City by Clifford Simak. And it's a collection of short stories that are tied together with an introduction and sort of little snippets that are done from a fictitious editor. They're short stories that were written near the end of Second World War, about 44, 45 to 1951. 1952, it came out as a novel through Gnome Press. It was a short-lived press. I think it lasted 10 years, basically, but with 80-some books. They're highly collectible. They're very nice. And anybody who has a collection of those, yeah, that's impressive. But anyway, yeah, so these are stories. The editor, this fictitious editor, is a dog. And the introduction sort of says, these are the stories that dogs tell when the fires burn high and the wind is from the north. Each family circle gathers round the hearthstone, and the pups sit silently and listen. And when the story's done, they ask many questions. What is man? They'll ask. Or perhaps, what is a city? Or, what is a war? And that's how it starts. And the final story, epilogue, wasn't written until 1970, early 70s, 72 or 70, probably written in 72. Well, it came out, I think, in 73 under sort of a memorial volume edited for John W. Campbell, edited by Harry Harrison. I think Mark Richardson at Richardson Reads had a copy there. I'm pretty sure that was one he had when he did his video on science fiction anthologies. And that's where it first came out. And then later it's generally added to other publications of the book as an epilogue story. Now, where are we? Number 5. Cryptid Biped-Monsters, a favorite book featuring a hominid who isn't Homo sapiens. Well, we're going back to Clifford Simak here. Might as well keep it as the theme. Goblin Reservation. When that was in the 60s, I think. Late 60s. Or early. I can't remember off the top of my head. But anyway, it's set in the future on Earth, where there's sort of galactic empires, and the Earth is turned into a university, basically. And so everybody who sort of lives and works here is either working for the university or going as a student or professors. And it's called Goblin Reservation because all the sort of goblins, fairies, trolls sort of decided to come out of hiding, and they sort of live now among humans and other aliens. One of the main characters in there is I can't remember his name, but he's a Neanderthal, because they got time machines, so they went back and snatched him out of time, and he's got like multiple PhDs, but he looks like a Neanderthal. And there's other characters where there's a ghost who can't remember who he's a ghost of, but then he finds out later. But no, yeah, that would be it. It would be the Neanderthal, multiple PhD Neanderthal from Goblin Reservation by Clifford D. Simak. A Cryptid Avian-Monsters, a favorite book featuring a bird. Well, I was going to go for David Attenborough's Life of Birds, but I remember one other one when I read as a kid. Farley Mowat was a Canadian writer, and there's a novel of his called Owls in the Family. I remember loving this book as a kid, and I probably read it several times. It's about a young boy who rescues animals, and he rescues several owls and takes them in and nurses them back to health. And yeah, it's sort of his sort of life with these animals, and I remember how, like he sort of ostracized a little bit, not ostracized, but alienated a little bit from sort of other kids his age. But it's a short little story, and I enjoyed it. I haven't read it probably for 45 to 50 years, most likely. But I do remember that one. About the only thing that comes to mind other than The Life of Birds. Cryptid Cat-Monsters, a favorite book featuring a cat. Extra points if the cat is terrifyingly enormous. The only thing I could think of, cat-wise, is a collection of poems, and it's T.S. Eliot's Old Possum's book of peculiar Cats, is it? Old Possum's Book. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's just a collection of poems. I just love them. I reread them every so often, and I've got now a big collection of really annotated edition with it, and I started going through the annotations and the footnotes, but I got waylaid. But that will be a joy at some point to go through. Because I can't think of anything else sort of cat-wise. I remember reading ancient Egyptian literature, some hieratic literature that had cats in it, because cats were a big thing in ancient Egypt, but I couldn't think of a specific story that was about a cat itself. So, and then we're at number 8. And it says, are you in fact a cryptid? Give yourself 1 point for each yes. The questions are you often met by disbelief or even horror by those who encounter you? Yeah. Just look at me. Are the people in the world who consider you mostly or entirely mythical? Maybe. Is there anything about you that science finds puzzling? Yeah. In your natural state, do you typically emit odd noises or odors? I wouldn't say they're odd noises or odd odors. Let's leave it at that. Are you an evolutionary dead and scorned by modern world? Are you an evolutionary dead end scorned by modern world? Time will tell. Do you occasionally exhibit near human levels of intelligence? Yeah. And I think he said to send it off to a museum, like a sample of your feces and everything. Already done, Steve. Hyde Cottage put as the return address. I thought you'd appreciate that. It's to tag fellow cryptids. I think Steve's tagged everybody that I normally would, so I'll leave it at that, and it'll be interesting to see what others have to say on the subject. I will end it there.